Hello. Greetings, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to sunny Guernsey. And I can say that with a surety. It is beautifully sunny here today. And welcome to our very first Shedcast from our little island in the middle of the English Channel, in case you didn't know where we are. And, well, this is all frightening and exciting at the same time. I'm going to start bringing people straight in. I've got, kicking around on the background, I've got Alan, who is one of our shedders. Hi, Alan. And I've also got Patrick, who's in the UK, in Frome in Somerset. We've just lost Patrick. Come in, Patrick. We've got you. There you are. Hello. We just caught Patrick mid-brew. Good man.
Hello.
And hi there.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, A1.
Good.
Thanks, Patrick. And also, live streaming from his car, can you believe it?
Hello.
We've got Mark, who is the Men's Shed Guernsey chairman. Hi, Mark. Oh, we've lost him. He's
I can't hear
lost us.
Marcel. Can anybody else hear Marcel?
You're not missing much. They can hear me. Okay, so for the sake of anybody watching either live or latterly, greetings, and please bear with us. This is our first foray into this properly. We've done a few tests in the background, but it is a little bit scary playing with the technology in the background. Also in the background, backstage, I've got my son JP. He's turned his camera off at the moment, so I can't flash him up on screen. But he's going to be helping us with some of the comments. So thanks, JP, for that. Let me just see. I should have a graphic in the background in a moment. To see, I'll sort that out in the background. Some of the things that we're going to be doing today, we've got Alan's going to be talking about his boat project that he's just undertaking at the Guernsey Shed. Let me get this running order loaded up and then I'll show you that. Patrick is going to be talking about, well, UK Men's Shed Association in the UK. And Mark is going to just give us a friendly, chumly warning, something that has come his way. Right, Mark Smith, can you hear me now, Mark?
I can, Marcel. You just come on.
Is that because you had to replug your headphones or something like that?
I did the technical fix of unplugging them and plugging them back in, and it worked.
Yeah, that's most shed technique of troubleshooting.
Switch you on again.
Fabulous. Let me see if I've got the show running order. There we go. On today's Shedcast, we're going to have Alan talking about his boat project. Derek, who's not joined us yet. Derek's one of our Guernsey shedders. He's going to be joining us live from the shed, hopefully. And Mark is going to say, watch out, because there's some things to watch out for in this new coronavirus world that we're living in. And then a little bit later, we'll PKO, put kettle on for a tea time, because I know what it's like when you get a bunch of blokes sitting around chatting. There's only so long goes by before you need a wee and you need a cup of tea. And then after that, we'll bring in Patrick from the UK Men's Shed Association. Thank you, Patrick, for joining us all the way from Frome in Somerset, England. Very cool. Let's hide that. So just one quick thing. Why are we doing this? With this whole coronavirus business and everyone sort of self-isolating, the purpose of this is to, now that we're not meeting at the shed anymore, we took that decision in Guernsey just last week, and it cuts against the grain as to what men's sheds are all about. We're all about getting people out of their isolated home situation and getting them together and liaising with each other. Sorry, JP's just flagging up some private chats in the background for me. That's fine. It's all back end stuff. Sorry. Where was I saying? I was talking about coronavirus and self-isolating. Well, actually, the shed is all about getting people out of isolation and combating that problem. So now we're saying the shed's closed, go and isolate yourself again. that's not exactly what we're about. So we were brain scratching last week to say, what can we do to at least get some guys together and share a sense of community? And this is what we've come up with. We've got, some new software that can do this amazing service from StreamYard, and it's streaming to Facebook and YouTube at the same time. So it's rather clever, but we need to hear from you as to what you think to all of this and what we can do to improve it. In fact, I'm seeing some comments coming in from YouTube. Dan says Marcel's camera could be better. Are you sure it's the camera? Really? Is it just the camera that's the problem? Good question. Yeah, I must admit, looking at you other guys, your camera looks just that bit sharper, a bit contrastier. But mind you, my laptop is about 1,000 years old. Phil on YouTube says, greetings from Nail Sea Shedders in North Somerset. That's up your way, Patrick. Do you know Phil? Nope. Have we lost you,
But he does.
Clearly not. Fine. So as we go, if you're on Facebook, if you're watching this live on Facebook, can I ask you to go to the link? It's bimbling across in the ticker at the bottom of the screen there. And it should be in the Facebook post just above where this video is appearing. There's a link that says StreamYard/Facebook. Just go through that and approve, because then when you send in a comment, we can see your name and your picture. I'm not going to do this normally, but if you don't click to that link and allow us to see your name and picture, what we get is that. Someone says we're not getting the full beard effect, which is a fair comment, but it's probably a good thing. But as you can see, there's no name and there's no Facebook profile picture. And we would like to see who you are, because that helps us. If you want the full beard effect, I need to do something like this and stick it under my headphone or something. That pure nonsense. I'm just aware, Mark, are you feeling a sense of beard envy here today?
No, I'm quite comfortable not having a beard.
Yeah, okay, young man like yourself, it's understandable. And I'm looking at Alan and Patrick, thinking, well, chaps, maybe when you're older, you get a proper beard on.
When the wind resistance doesn't matter on the bike.
That's true, but it does do this nice trailing thing as you ride, which is quite good.
Keep your ears warm.
Okay, let's get into this. I'm going to kick out Mark and Patrick just for the moment, and if I can come to Alan. I was going to say something before about just coronavirus, just to say that we'll highlight coronavirus, but we're not here as an advisory service about coronavirus, because we don't have the up-to-date information. If you need the up-to-date information, then I reckon you should look up your local services. In Guernsey, that would be on the gov.gg website, gov.gg, and there's a link on there, but it's /coronavirus. So just for anyone watching, don't come here for corona advice, because the moment we give you advice, even if it's correct advice, it'll be out of date by the time we've uttered the words. So please take this seriously, but in the meantime, keep yourself safe. That's the most important thing. And engage with us, because then we can all join in this party online together. So, Alan, how long have you been with us at the Shed?
From the beginning, so that must be now getting on for 3 years, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you hear about us?
Partly through Adrian, my son, and going along to a meeting where our lovely, oh gosh, what's her name?
Was that the Lego meeting?
No, although
okay.
I did come to that, yes. Yeah. But I came up to when we were looking at going into the the shed where the men's shed is now. We came up there and they organised a meeting in the greenhouse, and I wasn't really quite quick enough in stepping backwards, so I got elected onto the committee.
Nifty.
And here I am still.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for everything you've been doing for the shed. Let's pull up some pictures of your gorgeous boat. Could you tell us a little bit about this? Let me get my screen sharing sorted out in the background. If I share my screen, it's a little bit of
I've lost
hop-scoopy.
track of how many years I've had the boat, but it was actually built around about 1965. Yeah, there it is. That's the back end. It's pointed at both ends, which is why it's called a Sport in Norway, because it's a Norwegian boat. And Sport simply means pointed boat, as in pointed at both ends. And it was my father-in-law's. And one way or another, it was left to me eventually. And I said, yeah, that's fine. Can I come and fetch it? No problems. Ingrid's family in Norway were quite happy for me to do that. So round about 1994, 96, something like that,
Okay.
I did a 4,500 mile round trip with a car and a trailer from Guernsey to the north of Norway and back again, and brought the boat back. And I've been looking after it ever since, working out all the mistakes I've made in its maintenance and gradually improving it. Oh, there we are. I converted it in the end for sailing, because I thought it was never designed for sailing.
Oh.
But because it's got a long keel underneath it, it tends not to drift sideways in the wind when you stop rowing. It carries on going backwards or forwards, whichever way the wind is blowing. And I thought, right, this should be good for sailing. And I designed the rudder. Don't ask me how. It's all very complicated. And I tried using a small sail, mizzen sail, borrowed from somebody else's boat at the time. It was in their loft. They didn't want it. Said, try it and see how it works. Keep it, throw it away if you don't want it. And I tried it, and it worked very well. I thought, this is good enough to get a proper sail designed. So I drew the lines for the boat and everything, and so I drew the plans for it, basically, measuring the boat, and worked out what the sail should be like, courtesy of a few small boat designers. And I've got the sails and mast. 4 years ago maybe, the temporary rudder that I was using got caught on the rock when I was going backwards. It was an old dinghy rudder.
Oops.
And I managed to crack the top of it. So I thought, right, time to make a decent rudder, and this is the one I made. It works very well.
Nice.
But the year before, I ended up having a big problem in that it's a slightly leaky boat, and of course when it rains it collects a huge amount of water, and I set myself up with a small pump and a float switch in the bottom of the boat, and a 12-volt car battery basically. But the battery didn't last very long if there was lots of rain or lots of leaky bits coming in the boat and everything. So right, I need a solar panel set up, and that worked brilliantly. I had that going for 5-6 years or whatever, and then at the end of 2018, sorry, a few years ago, I was setting up the boat, and before I went off on holiday. And what I didn't realise, although I thought afterwards, my foot caught in one of the electric wires. I disconnected the solar panel, so the battery, once it ran down, stopped working the pump. And I didn't realise, I was away for 3 weeks, and luckily I've got my son and a few friends and people in Facebook always watch out for boats. So by the time it had sunk down to gunwale level, It wasn't completely at the bottom of the sea. It was just floating with the top edge of the boat just above the water. Just enough for all the various bits and pieces of equipment, including an oar, a few floorboards, and the rudder tiller arm, and things like that to go disappearing. So I thought, oh no, you have to make new things to replace all these bits.
So this is what you came up to the shed with 2 or 3 months ago. You started bringing bits in.
Yeah. Yeah, I started bringing bits and pieces up to the med shed because I was had so much to do at home. I thought I haven't really got time here. But actually, at the med shed, this is a perfect activity for doing there. So this is the replacement oar that I made. It's luckily only lost one of the oars, so I used the other one as a pattern.
Great.
And it was quite a problem sorting out how to make it, but I managed it in the end.
It's quite a complex shape, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. In one of the previous pictures, I showed there was illustration of me using the spar gauge, which is a piece of wood, and you're looking. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, it's a piece of wood with a pin down on each side, little bit wider apart than the spar that you're making, and then you put pencils down or screws to make scratch marks at a certain distance, and then as you scrape it along the top of the spar, it sets the two lines. You can see there's a glue line in the middle of this, and then
yeah,
I think and then a pencil line each side of it, and I do that on all four sides, and then plane off a
sort of octagonal.
the quarters, plane off each corner down to those lines, and it makes an exact octagonal. And then I could reset the spar gauge for making 16 sides, but to be quite honest, it's easier just to draw a few pencil lines by eye and hand, and just plane it down to those, and then basically round it off. And
nice.
And I discovered it makes not only a perfect circle, but if you start off with a rectangular section, then you get the beautiful oval section as well. So
it's really neat, isn't it? Yeah. What you can't see from the pictures is that it's up at the handle end, it's nice and round, but as it goes down towards the blade, it becomes quite oval, and then when it gets to the blade, it flattens out the other way. And I wish I had a better, clearer picture of that, but it's that whole shape from round to oval to flat is quite an odd profile setup.
Yeah.
So because we're still renovating the shed, and we're just waiting for building control permission on one of the halves of the shed to put in ceiling and whatnot. We're sort of on slight renovation hiatus. Alan's really keen to get the boat ready for the season, so we've just agreed that he can bring the boat in just for a short period, do a bit of work on it in the dry. I was going to say warm and dry, but it's just dry. And then, so this was the scene, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was?
Yes, about 2 weeks ago today it might have been, yes. It was Wednesday, wasn't it? Yeah.
So we sort of had a bogey set of dolly wheels that we shoved underneath it, and then just to give it a bit of wheelie support. Otherwise, it's a major lifting operation.
Yeah.
Although it's not terribly heavy, but it's certainly helped.
Yeah.
But of course, we couldn't get it into the shed. We've got two sheds alongside each other with a doorway through, and we couldn't get it into the shed that we wanted by going through the front door. So we had to go in through the big shed, the noisy, dirty side, and then go through the doors at the back, which was... I'm glad we made it an extra wide sort of opening bit.
Yes, the door's 4 feet and the boat just fits through it nicely.
Excellent. I'm so glad we did it that way.
Yeah.
And obviously, that's one of our other shedders, Melk, talking about the one that got away, no doubt.
Yes.
Because Alan, you like fishing, don't you? Fishing's your thing, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, that's right. I mainly use it for going out fishing. Occasionally, I use it for going out on sort of mini expeditions and things down to. I went down to Fermain once, for example, with a friend, and that was really nice.
Super.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So,
There's a lot of sandpapering, and unfortunately, I thought, right, it's up at the men's shed. Now I can get on with loads of sandpapering, and I ended up with a cold for a week, so I wasn't able to get up then. And then this coronavirus came in, and the shed was closed down. I'll have to see if I can come to some sort of arrangement for going there when nobody else is around.
yeah, I think we can probably do that. It's something that's been in my mind. And in fact, Derek's up there at the moment doing a little job. He's going to try and join us by mobile phone shortly, hopefully, but he hasn't clocked in yet.
Oh, right.
But we'll see. But the question mark for that, just talking on Corona, bear in mind that this isn't advice, but there are questions about if one person goes and touches all the tools and the door handles on a Monday, whoever goes in on the Tuesday is still touching everything, so that you might not be sharing the space, but actually you're sharing everything that everyone's touched. So that there is still a concern. We'll see what we can do about that.
Yeah, we'll have to work out how long is coronavirus, how long does it hang around on virus on bits and pieces of equipment and things.
The best I've heard
hours,
is days,
hours, a week?
like 72 is what I've heard. But again, pinch of salt, don't take that for gospel.
Yes,
I
yeah,
feel
we
like
need to look it up.
I'm feeling like I'm having to cover myself. Don't get your corona advice from here.
Yes, yeah, quite right, yeah.
So Dan says, gorgeous boat, Alan, and Rob Brown on Facebook. Thanks, Rob. Really nice looking boat. It is gorgeous, isn't it? Really lovely, simple lines.
Yeah, I really like it. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, it's 16 feet long, just in case anybody's interested.
Smashing. Well, going forward, on future Shedcasts, Alan, would you join us again and tell us how you're getting on?
Oh, yeah.
If you're getting on at all.
Yeah. Oh, yes, yeah. I'll let you know. Yes, yeah.
And I'm just thinking way ahead here, but in crazy land, once you've got it sailing, maybe, just maybe, we could do a mobile phone live stream from on board your boat.
Oh, yeah. Possibly. Once I've worked out how to get a video on my mobile phone.
Well, that's cool. We can just send someone out with you, no problem.
Yeah, yeah.
Brill. Thank you ever so much, Alan. I really appreciate that.
All right, yeah.
I'll take you off screen for now and see who else we can get in. Now, Mark was going to be joining us. Mark is our chairman at Men's Shed Guernsey, but he lives and works in the real world. And what that actually means is that he's had to go and pick up the kids from school. So he's going to join us a little bit later. Now, I'm aware that time is ticking on. We're 25 past 3. Could I introduce you before we'll take a break in a few minutes, but why not start? Let's get Patrick in from Froome. We'll unmute your mic. That's it, you should be unmuted. Let's see. Your connection today doesn't seem too stable. Their mic isn't connected. I'm getting a message here, Patrick, that says your mic isn't connected. So could you try unplugging your doohickeys and then plug them back in again, please? And his connection seems terribly slow today. I don't know if we can do anything about that. We'll try. So Men's Shed Guernsey says, welcome to one and all. And then Dan says, yeah, that's all three of us. Hi, Dan. And I can actually say that it's not all three of you because my stats tell me here that we've got 10 people viewing online at the moment. Let's see if we can unmute Patrick's mic again remotely. Can't unmute your guest. Their mic isn't connected. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'll make a phone call to Patrick. We'll reboot his system. But in the meantime, this is something I know. Folks together. Sorry, I'll press the right button in a second. When you get a whole bunch of guys together and they're chit-chatting away, it's not long before two things need to happen. One, someone says PKO, put kettle on, and two, people need a wee. And here we are, just a bunch of blokes sitting around chatting together. So here's my suggestion, is that we take a short 5-minute break, and you can go and get a brew. And let me share my screen with you. Let's open that up. Let's see if I can... there we go. We'll share the audio as well. So, we'll take just a 5-minute break. Go and grab yourself a brew. And I'm serious, mine's virtually empty, so I'm going for a brew. And we'll see you right back in just a few minutes, and you can go for a wee as well. Top tip, put the kettle on before you go for a wee, and don't forget to wash your hands. we're coming back live. You don't want me to sing to you. Right, we'll kill that. We can take that out, and it's still playing to me in my ears. It's complicated, this. There we go. Brill. So I've just heard from Patrick that he had some other software running in the background on his computer, and that was probably what was bogging down his computer and stopping things from working. So he's just going off to restart his computer, and he's not popped back up again. So maybe there's been a power cut in Frome. I don't know. So some other things to mention. Obviously, this is a very first foray. Our idea was particularly immediately for Guernsey shedders to be able to get together. But there's obvious benefits to having UK links, national links, so that both other people can benefit and share in what we're doing over here, but also they can bolt themselves in, and we can draw on what's going on in the UK, which is a really, really valuable thing. We've got Alan popped back in. You got yourself a brew, Alan? Oh, hang on, he's got cake as well. Oh, you
nice
mix. What have you got? Have you got cakes or biscuits?
Yeah, cake. It's Ingrid was good enough to make some tea bread. She's getting a bit bored being off work because she's had a cold as well, so hasn't been able to go to work. So
Sorry.
It's not a coronavirus cold. It's just an ordinary cold, but the advice is don't spread the germs around.
Yeah, that's reasonable advice. Yeah.
But mine's just about gone now.
Yes, Dan in the background on YouTube is saying absolutely right. It's a global village, and to that end, Patrick, who is part of the UK Men's Shed Association, yesterday when we were talking was saying that he had a telephone call scheduled for today, which was going to be with an Australian Men's Shed Association representative. At which point I'm thinking, well, of course, once you start streaming, they can watch. But with this technology, there's no reason why they can't also take part, which is mind-blowing. In the process of testing this software the other day, I tapped up a friend in Florida. Shout out to TH if he's watching. And the lag between Guernsey and Florida, which is thousands of miles away, was next to nothing. It was really unnoticeable. And he was operating through his mobile device and driving along the road in the car. His mum, I hasten to add, was holding the phone. So it was mind-blowing potential for this. So for anyone who's interested in playing with this stuff, I'm not uncommissioned. Well, I am actually. If you ask for a reference link, you get a discount and I get a discount. But go to streamyard.com. It only seems fair that I don't keep this a secret because actually it's of use to everybody. So StreamYard. I don't quite know where they got their name from. And their icon is a duck with headphones on. I don't quite understand it. I must ask them. Cool. We got Mark Smith joining us. He's no longer in his car by the looks of it. Hi,
No, I'm at home.
Welcome back. You got the kids sorted out from school?
Cool. We got Mark Smith.
Yes,
Plug your
there
headphones in.
I know. I'm looking at myself on Facebook as well. Who says I'm vain?
You did.
I did, yeah. The kids are all settled with a big plate of chocolate biscuits, so we shouldn't see them for about 20 minutes, and then the sugar rush will kick in, and it'll be crazy.
You won't be able to hold them down.
Yeah, Dan says, pass the tea cake, please. That's a note, obviously, to Alan. Could you introduce us to the new guest you've got sat on your lap?
Yeah, that's Daisy. She looks enormous, but as everybody from the shed knows, she's actually quite small. But being in front of me, perspective makes her look huge.
Or maybe she just needs a shave.
Oh, no, she had a shave the other day.
Hello, Daisy. Daisy is a regular at the Men's Shed in Guernsey. Wherever Alan goes, you can guarantee that about 5 paces behind Alan, there's this little bundle of fluff. And of course, every Saturday at our shed, 12:30 is known as bacon o'clock, and the doors get thrown open wide, sometimes literally, to anyone who rocks up, men, women, children, because it's a great contact point if people can rock up for a bacon butty. And of course, Daisy is always there, very eagerly, just doting on whoever's got.
Generally.
She is first in the queue, yes. But the bad news for Daisy is that she is intolerant to wheat. Is that correct? So a bit of bacon is okay, but bread's not good.
That's right, yeah, she's wheat intolerant, yeah.
Oh, bless her.
Or allergic to it or whatever, yeah.
Cool. Patrick is back up in the background, so let's pump. Patrick! Oh, you're back with us, are you? Online, up to speed. Good to see you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little bit stuttery. I wonder if that's a problem with the Ethernet cable that we asked you to use. I wonder if it's worth going on to Wi-Fi, because, as you said, it was working better yesterday on Wi-Fi. What do you think?
I'll give it a try. Cut me off and I'll do that now.
Okay, let's kick him off. Cheerio, kick him. There we go. Kick guest. That's quite satisfying, isn't it, when you get to kick someone? Cool. So, to anyone who's watching live, we've got 14 people currently. Quick question. What do you want to see on this thing as we go forward? What's of use to you? What will be of interest to you? Our intention is that this isn't some ultra slick production, but actually we're just a bunch of blokes sitting around having a chat, and we get to share it with you wherever you are, and you get to share with us, because you can add through the comments. So if you're watching on Facebook, if you add a comment, we get to see it, and if you're doing it on YouTube live, then we also get to see your comments, and of course we get to add your comments in as we go. Somebody's asked, what's the Men's Shed channel name? That's a good question. I presume you're asking on YouTube. I'll have to check on that because we've only just set up the YouTube channel to make this happen. There is always a delay when you set up a new channel between then and when YouTube actually allows you to set a stream up. And they say it's 24 hours, but StreamYard were telling me that it's usually much less than 24 hours, so don't worry about it. But the reality was, at the early hours of this morning, when I was checking it to see if it was able to stream yet, it still wasn't engaged. So it must have come on early this morning. And it works. That's great. But so I don't even know what the channel is. All right, Patrick is back. Let's add Patrick into the fray. Welcome, Patrick. How's that? Are you on Wi-Fi now?
I don't know, Marcel. How is that?
It's a bit stuttery, but we'll give it a go. Let's see how far we get. I'm going to bump Alan and Mark out just for the minute. Patrick, so long as this works, welcome. And can you tell us a bit about yourself? You're part of the UK Men's Shed Association, but what's your role in all of that?
Well, I'm an ambassador, which means that I'm an unpaid volunteer who start up generally in the southwest.
Okay. You sent me some pictures. I can bump those up, so we can just have a look at where you cover. What's this showing us, Patrick?
This shows us the number of sheds by area in the southwest. Now, I'm embarrassed by the Channel Islands because, as you pointed out earlier, Marcel, it's unlikely that someone's Jersey to Guernsey to visit a shed. So I should probably list those separately.
We're not anti that, you know. We're not totally anti-Jersey people coming over here. But this graph that you sent me is what caught my eye. Yes, there is only one shed in Guernsey. We'd like there to be more in due course, but there isn't currently a shed in Jersey. But this is numbers of sheds per thousands of population. So in Bristol, there's enough sheds to have 66,000 people per shed, which sounds crazy, but it's a reasonable sort of metric. Cornwall evidently needs a few more sheds, but as we scan along, they're around the sort of 50 to 70,000 mark per shed until you get to Channel Islands, and we're 165. Well, the problem is Guernsey's only got a population of about 160 something, and Jersey's got 100 and something. So it's a dodgy bit of statistic, that, because it's ferrying them over, if you know anything about our ferry, is a bit of a no-no. So yeah, in your stats, if you could split that off into Guernsey and Jersey, that'd be great.
Well, to be, let me explain.
That's just me being parochial.
Preface with there are better and worse ways of doing this, but the fact talking about it, which is what the issue is. So what this group done in the past is, why don't we get more in Cornwall?
You're
And
breaking up
I'm talking
quite a lot
about
on
Jersey,
us.
and reissue this, Marcel, in the next 48 hours.
Excellent. Yes, a massive update. That'd be cool.
How's
That seems to be working better, but it's so fickle. We've got a graph here showing the growth of men's shed in South West. How do you feel that's going? Obviously, and I don't know if UK Men's Shed Association is sort of putting targets on things to try and, it's not a business at the end of the day, where you've got to meet your sales targets. But what's the hope of Men's Shed Association in UK?
to support as many men and women as possible in the whole of the UK.
Fair enough. How many sheds are there in the entirety of the UK now?
Sorry.
How many sheds in the UK total? Sorry.
There are 600 sheds open. And a planned.
That's fantastic. When did
Right now, the 90
first
that are
shed
closed
set up?
because of the virus.
That makes sense. When was the first shed opened in the UK?
But probably 20 years ago or thereabouts in Cheshire.
Amazing. This is
So
something
this
that started
graph just
in
says the number of
Australia.
days open per week.
Gotcha. Yeah. So Guernsey Shed comes up in the number 2 column there. We are currently open Wednesdays from 2 p.m. and Saturdays from 10 a.m. So that's us in the 2 bracket. That seems to be, 1 or 2 days is the most common. And then it drops off rapidly. Why do you suppose that is, that sheds aren't opening many days a week?
I don't know, but it's a very similar pattern in other districts, in other regions.
Okay, that's interesting.
I have no idea why.
Let's just, fair enough. Let me switch that off. You're involved in also something called Shed Happens. Can you tell us about Shed Happens? What is it?
It's a radio show we've been running once a month for the last 2 years. Sheds and Shed Matters.
Brilliant. For anyone interested, I recommend you Google Shed Happens Froome. Spelt Frome, but it's pronounced Froome.
Thank you.
And that gets you.
Frome.
I always get it wrong. So, yeah. And even my spell checker seems to think that double O is okay. What do you know?
Yeah, of
So
course.
what do you do on this radio program?
Well, we talk to shedders. We give news. We have a bit of we like music sent to us by shedders across the country.
You've shared a couple of shed
And
songs
generally
with me.
have some fun.
That's great.
Yeah.
The couple of songs you shared with me, I've tried to get in touch with them to ask if we can use them on this Shedcast. And so far, I haven't had permissions back. So next time, hopefully, we'll be able to play in one of those Shed songs from YouTube. Absolutely hilarious and wonderfully creative. Just for anyone
There's
else
lots of music
interested.
about.
Excellent. Well, we'll look up some more of it. For anyone interested in UK men's sheds, obviously you can look on Facebook do a search for UK men's sheds. And is there a Men's Shed Association website? I can't remember the address.
Yeah, ukmsa.org.uk.
.org.uk. Let me add that as a banner because that will. There we go. UK Men's Shed Association.org.uk. UKMSA. Fabulous. What advice would you have? We're setting up this this Shedcast thing. What advice would you have for us in doing this?
People don't volunteer to take part generally, so ask them. So if anybody's got half an idea they'd like to take part, have a word with Marcel.
Sounds good to me. I must admit we did have a volunteer when we were doing a test cast the other day. One of our Guernsey shedders said, I'm just starting a cookery YouTube channel, just working on it. And I think the Corona lockdown has kicked him into, I must get this done. So that's brilliant. So hopefully on future shows, we'll be able to hook up with him and do a live cooking demonstration. Cooking is something he came to our shed with totally a bee in his bonnet about. The first thing he said to me when he came is, right, I want to do cooking demonstrations. Is that okay? The first answer was yes, and the second answer is, when we're making a bit less dust because of the renovation, yes, you can. And that'd be brilliant. So he's got some great ideas about putting out lots of little stoves on the table, and guys can get together, take whole ingredients and do a one-pot wonder and all this sort of stuff. He's a trained chef and he's been teaching for decades, really knows his stuff. So looking forward to getting some food on and getting some sharing of food. Fabulous. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Patrick?
Marcel, yeah, I would like to add. I'd like to say that what you're doing with this Shedcast, which is a great name, by the way, carry on. Please carry on with it. I think you're doing a fantastic job, and we're going to give it plugs wherever we can manage.
Thank you. Obviously, we're in.
So congratulations.
Waving the flag from Guernsey Shed, obviously, but having people from the UK tie into what we're doing, and we could feed off them. And already on the UK Men's Shed Association Facebook page, I've really been buoyed up in the last few weeks since that started. Really encouraged to hear all the discussion that's happening up and down the UK. It means that we're not just little island sat in the channel doing our own little thing. Actually, we're part of something much bigger, and that really encourages me.
Yes.
So the discussions there have gone from, what's your shed doing about coronavirus to what's your shed doing about insurance? What's your shed doing about this? Right the way through to I've made a thingy or Dave made a thingy. And, it's just wonderful. And the projects that get shared are just wonderful, delightful. Cool. Thank you very much for joining us, Patrick.
Well, no, Marcel, thank you very much for the invitation and very best wishes to all Guernsey shedders. Stay calm and stay healthy.
Amen. Okay, I'll kick you out just for a second. Stay on the line. But floating around in the background, we've got back on the stream. We've got Mark Smith, who is chairman of Guernsey Men's Shed Association. Guernsey Men's Shed. We didn't put association in the name.
No, Men's Shed, Guernsey Men's Shed. I can never remember which way we have it.
Now, Mark, we're not allowed to talk about some aspects of this, but somebody's started flagging with you some concerns about people who are vulnerable and isolated in our community with respect scammers. Could you just share a little bit of what you've heard, and then maybe in future casts we can pick up on this more formally. But we decided that we wanted to say something on this cast because getting that information out, a word of caution to fellas and ladies, it's worth doing early. Mark, what have you got?
I think it's fair to say that there's an element of the community that will take advantage of current situations for their own financial gain. And it's become apparent in the last week or so that people are particularly taking advantage of the coronavirus, the fact that the people are worried, and this is basically scammers. These are the people that would be phoning you up from India and telling you that you've got a problem with your computer and they need to check for viruses and they need access to your computer, that sort of thing. We've also I've heard that people are being phoned up and told that their bank accounts have been compromised and they need to transfer money to a safe account. Sometimes the stories are very convincing and they've related this to the current coronavirus scare. And you'd think, how can anybody do that? But the convincing stories are mentioning key words like coronavirus and account compromise, things like that. Some things. One of the suggestions was that your bank has been infected with people who have coronavirus. They can't go in. They can't look after your money anymore. Please, can you transfer your money to a safe account? Now, having spoken to the banks, this doesn't actually happen ever. A bank will never phone you up and ask you to transfer your money to a safe account. So if you do have anybody asking you to do that, no matter how convincing they are, don't listen to them, don't do it, don't follow their instructions. The easiest thing to do is to hang up your phone. Important thing to remember is if you hang up your phone, and some things the scammers do, which is very clever, is they'll say, okay, just for security, obviously this is something that we recognize as a security risk, hang up your phone and phone back your bank. And a well-meaning person will hang up their phone back their bank, and the person answering the phone will say, oh yes, it's such and such bank, and how can I help you? And then you'll tell them the details, and they'll say, oh right, yes, okay, we'll arrange that transfer for you now. What actually has happened is the scammer hasn't hung up the phone. They've played an audio recording of a dialing tone. They can hear you pressing the numbers, and you end up speaking back to the scammer. So in that instance, if you're asked to phone back your bank, don't do it on the phone that you're using. Use a different phone, or phone someone else and try and break that contact that you've got. Break that connection with the scammer, and then either do one or two things. It's either phone your bank on a number that you know is your bank, not a number that you've been given by the person on the phone, or phone the police, and they'll be able to advise you what to do. But your bank will never, never, ever ask you to transfer money out of your account. One of the other stories that we've heard on the grapevine is, this one relates to the UK, but it could happen anywhere, is that people are turning up on doorsteps offering free coronavirus testing. Sometimes it's free, sometimes it's not free. No organization is actually doing doorstep testing for coronavirus unrequested. So if you've requested it, then it may happen. Your public health service might do it, but nobody is doing online doorstep testing for coronavirus that is unrequested. What these people are doing are asking for a cheek swab or a nasal swab or a swab of some description, putting it in a very official looking pot, and then using a mobile card payment device and taking card payments, or actually coming into the house and using distraction techniques and doing things that way to, to do something that isn't great, i.e., burgle you or whatever. As I say, and I can only reiterate this. Unless you've requested a doorstep or a visit for someone to come and test you for coronavirus, it's unlikely, very, very unlikely, that someone would just turn up at your doorstep and offer you a coronavirus test, and particularly ask you to pay for it on your doorstep. So if that happens, politely close the door and give the police a call, or give a trusted relative a call and let them know what's going on. There are some particularly unpleasant people around that will take advantage of this situation. And I don't want to scare anybody into and thinking this happens a lot, but it may be one of those things that might happen in your area.
Righto, you're right. It's not about scaring people, but you've got to be aware. These scammers are really devious, and they don't have a conscionable thought in their mind. Is that the right word?
I think so.
It is now. So yeah, just don't trust anybody. It's scumbags. Okay, thank you, Mark. Thank you. That's the serious. That's now the sciencey bit.
That's the serious
bit.
Now we can talk some rubbish a bit.
Cool. Right, let's bump some of these. See these other bods back in. There's Alan's still there, and Patrick's still there. Fantastic. So we're going to wind things up in just a couple of minutes, but I'd just like to end on saying, with this whole enforced staying at home business, this isolation stuff, one can get very negative about it, but also on the flip side, I know personally I've been really excited about the challenge of trying to set up something like this, and that's occupied my time and thinking time for the last few days. But I encourage everybody else to don't switch on daytime telly. Try to avoid that. But read a book, listen to the radio. I've been getting into Radio 4 recently, and there's always amazingly good stuff on Radio 4. I can't big it up enough. Obviously, if you've got access to the interwebs, then there's huge amounts of information and resources. There's so many makers online that publish videos about stuff they're doing, and I find that superbly exciting and inspiring. So use this time to get creative. Now that could be knitting, it could be darning socks, it might be popping out to your own shed and doing a bit of work, but I appreciate not everyone's got a shed that they can go and work in. I've got some stuff that arrived in the post the other day. I'm a bit excited. I don't know if you can see this very clearly. I'll bring it right up to the camera. This little circuit board here is called an Arduino, and it's a tiny computer. You can program it to do things. So I'm really excited about playing with that in the next few days. And even more exciting, let's just mute Patrick's shuffling the papers there. Right. Even more exciting is this here is what's called an OLED display. It's like a little LED display, and it's super tiny. That's my finger alongside it. And I'm hoping to hook that up with a soil moisture sensor and make a water moisture monitoring sort of sensor thing for my plants, because I don't know, I'm never very good at judging how much water it needs and when it needs it, and if there's too much. So many times it's either bone dry or the water's just brimming up near the top of the pot. So that's my hope, is to make one of these. So that's my little challenge. I can throw this across now. Mark, what creative ideas have you got? I know you're a really creative guy.
Oh God, you put me on the spot, Marcel. I was thinking, I was just watching what you were doing there with your high-tech solution to seeing whether your plant needs watering. I've got 2 accurate measures of this. The first one is the plant brown? Yes, it needs watering. Is the plant green and bushy and wilting over a little bit? Probably doesn't need watering. I know it's not a technical solution. It's not very much problem solving. Anyway, I think my wife would probably say I'm not particularly successful with that. So your device might be quite interesting to get
Well,
hold of.
if I get it to work, hopefully for the next Shedcast, I'll be able to show you a working solution, and then we can share the plans and share the code. And people up and down the globe can be making these jolly little things. I think the idea of waiting till it goes brown might be closing the gate after the horse has bolted.
Like I said, I'm not a successful gardener.
Brown fingered. Oh,
Just
Patrick's
cover
back.
the pot in seaweeds, and if it's crispy, it's dry. If it's soft, it's wet.
Yes, the old Guernsey weather station.
I've got a windstone.
Excellent.
If it's steady, it's not windy. If it's doing that, it's getting windier. If it's doing that, it's very windy. And if it's gone, it's a hurricane.
Yeah, very good. And if it's wet, it's raining, all that stuff. Excellent.
Totally reliable.
Patrick, thanks for sharing us a message. Thanks for... Mark, apologise for laughing seemingly at you when you were describing what you were describing. What you're talking about plants, very funny, yes. But what you may not have noticed is Patrick putting up a sign, back in 2 minutes, dog needs a poo. Are you all better now, Patrick?
I'm fine, thank you. Yes.
Is dog a code?
Patrick, have you got any
Doggy's fine too.
crazy suggestions for creativity? Simple stuff.
Well, there's for me, it's reworking a Southwest Sheds status sheet, which I shall do, as I said, in the next 24 hours. But I think there's a lot of music that can be had. I think there's a lot of things like, and I recall you go hedge veg. So I would imagine that there's something along those lines in terms of community support. You could be putting notices up on the hedge veg boards, off for dog walks or shopping or, whatever.
Yeah.
So I guess there's quite a few things. There's quite a few online stuff, online bridge playing, things like this, which I think may be useful.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Well,
Good
in
thing.
fact,
Alan, any
so-
thoughts?
Yeah, if I can follow on from Patrick there, it's not so much hedge veg as hedge plants, because I've for the last year or even 2 years, I've brought up some small chili plants. This year, I thought, right, I'll go for it properly. I've transplanted 50 seedlings of chilies, and now there's nobody going to the med shed to collect them all. But I'll bring them up there, I think, anyway, and then people can help themselves as and when they go. So it's so that will keep people going a bit.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I need to come and see you and get some of those chili seeds for my greenhouse.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They're. I don't know. I'll find some way of making them accessible to people.
Oh, just let me know where they are, and I'll pop round and grab them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Awesome sauce. Local
Yeah. They're not
community
quite
action.
ready yet. Another week or so, and then they'll be ready to plant out.
Excellent. What else was I going to say in terms of creativity? Okay, so can we throw this open to everybody who's watching here and now and in the future, because it's going to remain on Facebook and YouTube? We're also aware that there are not just the socially isolated members of our community, but within that, a subset is going to be the technically isolated members of the community, people who haven't got a computer, an iPad, Wi-Fi, and the means to watch this stream and be a part of this and all the other stuff that goes online. So one of our questions amongst ourselves has been, how can we serve them with this Shedcast in particular? How can we reach them? And the thought is, maybe if we can find some old iPads, get the live stream primed and ready, and we can have a guy who needs the necessary training about infection control. We have to work with the infection control people at the hospital to work out the hoops on this. Goes along, sets up the stream for them with a a mobile internet connection, knocks on the door, pops it on the doorstep with a pair of headphones or whatever. In fact, doesn't need headphones because they can just listen to it live. And then they can take part. At the very least, they can watch the stream as we're broadcasting it live, which would be rather cool. So if there's anybody who's got suggestions as to how we can go about that, but I wanted to ask the question, but also to share the concept online and say this might be something that's useful in your community as well, for people who are not even online. That's not to look down on anybody, that sounds condescending, but there are people who are really isolated. The sort of social connections that people would normally have had that would have kept them going, even that's now been taken away because of Corona. So just amongst ourselves, any suggestions on that or thoughts on that?
I think it's something that myself and you have discussed, Marcel, as a great opportunity to get out into the community and try and reduce the socialization that is happening, particularly now as well. But I mean, there are a lot of people in the community that don't have that access to the outside world, who are feeling very isolated. They perhaps don't leave their homes, and this is a good opportunity on whatever level to get them connected with not just us but the rest of the world, maybe friends and family. We're finding that, I think we'll find in the next couple of weeks that a lot of families will be physically separated from one another for whatever reason, and not be able to talk to each other or see each other. And we know that, in the old days it was pick up the phone. These days it's pick up FaceTime or use a medium like this to get out and speak to your friends and family. And there's people that just don't have that ability to do that. So I think from dropping it off and delivering it to someone preloaded, ready to go, logistically, I think it could be quite hard, because you're going to have, if you're talking 10, 12 people, 20 people that you want to offer that service to, then that's 10, 20 people that have to be out delivering that service, which can be logistically quite challenging. Perhaps we can get iPads into these, or devices into people's homes, set them up with very basic instructions on how to use it. For those people that might not be technically online but are capable of getting online. Let's be honest, if my mother-in-law can use an iPad and an iPhone, admittedly with some support, then pretty much anybody can. So it makes it very easy to do. We've had a connection today. Someone suggested, why don't I speak to the Guernsey Voluntary Service, who do Meals on Wheels? They're obviously out in the community. They know who they're delivering Meals on Wheels to, and they know the people that are vulnerable and might be isolated and might take up for that. So that's a call for tomorrow. And also we've got quite a lot of the catering businesses on the island now doing either takeaways or home delivery catering. So again, that's perhaps something that we can discuss with them and say, look, if you notice anybody is isolated and this would benefit, then we can talk to those guys as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for getting this message out there. And equally, there's a lot of devices, phones, tablets, just sat around in people's drawers that aren't doing anything because they've upgraded their tech.
That's right. What have you got in your drawers, Patrick?
Well, I've got a fair amount of tech lying about, and not phones though. But one of the things that does strike me, my mother is in a care home, and the care home recently, she's isolated, but they took a video of her this afternoon giving me a message, which I was able to send on to all the relatives, which actually made people feel a lot better, because they were in, they were worried about her because she was unwell in the care home. So it could be done, which helps other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything helps. Everything, a little goes a long way.
Yeah.
A little and often contact. I know there's some sheds in the UK that have done a phone list set up and it's a phone chain with the idea that, let's say, Mark phones me on whatever frequency once a week or maybe more. Mark phones me once a week, and we have a chat for however long we want to chat for. And then I phone Patrick, and then Patrick phones Alan. But of course, if I don't get a call from Mark, then I know there's a problem. There's something wrong with Mark, and I can make an investigation. If he doesn't phone me on a Monday, I know there's something wrong, and I can make an investigation as to what's up with him. And if I try and phone Patrick and I can't get Patrick, then that's my little alarm bell saying there's something wrong with Patrick. And we can make inquiries as to what's going on. So that's quite a neat little system. So that might be something we can do locally, and other sheds can be doing in their shed network as well.
One other thing, Marcel.
Marcel, I'm sorry. I have to go. I'm afraid I've got someone else I've got to get and see. So congratulations to everybody. And Marcel, I'll get back later because you've done a great job today. So thank you. And Mark and Alan, thanks very much as well.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Cheerio.
One of the things that we were discussing today that came out of came out of a public news conference yesterday was the term that has quite quickly become like modern language was the term social isolation or social distancing, and I really don't like that word, social distancing. It's something that, I get the concept, but we're asking people to isolate themselves and distance themselves socially, and I don't believe that's what it would be the correct term for it. I'm wanting to use the term physical distancing.
Yeah.
So we can physically distance ourselves from each other, but socially we can do things like this. We can talk to each other. We can phone each other. We can go out for walks, keep our distance from each other. But the social distancing part, I think, is a little bit. It's embedding that language in people that I can't be social, and you can be social. There's lots of ways of being social. We've seen Guernsey Man Club doing a Man Club session on Monday on Zoom, where they don't meet, but they meet on Zoom. Guernsey Mind had a choir last night on Zoom. Cool. There's other organisations which are organising events which are which are promoting that social contact and that the opposite of social distancing, but still retaining that physical distance. I think that's something that we should try and change the tone of the language, not all the words of the language, which will then embed. We don't want people to be isolated. We want them to be socially connected, and this is one way of doing it. There's countless other ways that we can be socially connected, and not isolating ourselves from each other.
Yeah, it's a good thought. Yeah. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts, Alan?
Not really. I tend to keep in touch with neighbours and things by speaking out in the road in front of the house, 2 or 3 meters away from them, and things like that, and so not going to visit people, but just passing the time of day and walking the dog and that sort of thing, but keeping bypassing people 2 or 3 meters away rather than going right up to them.
Yeah, I think this allows us, that it raises an opportunity to actually increase our social contact with people, not intimacy for all the right reasons, but just actually, like you say, I noticed it walking the last couple of evenings with my son along the headland here. People are tending to say hello more than they usually would. And that was really, really pleasant. So, hopefully people are having hello. There's our JP, backstage crew. But did you notice that people were saying hello kind of more than usual? No, there he go. There he was gone.
Yeah, he's gone again.
Well, I
hello
noticed
and goodbye.
Yeah, cool. Okay, now. Let's draw this to a close. I'd just like to say, on the front of creativity, I just want to say to everybody that watches, see if you can find something that can stimulate you. It might be picking up a craft. It might be reading a book or learning something new. Get your juices going. Get your skills up. Obviously, I've said I'm going to be playing with Arduinos, and whoops, I've just dropped it on the floor.
Not that one.
OLED displays. Oops.
Just don't tread on
It's
it.
robust. So I'm going to be doing fishing out the soldering iron. And a few years ago, when I was in Manchester, I went to a little men's shed there, and there was an old guy whittling out of little blank bits of wood about this sort of size, little square section. But he had a very sharp craft knife, and he had a book in front of him that had the plans to a whole array of little characters. Maybe a fisherman, maybe a I don't know, a fireman, all these different characters, and gardeners, all those sorts of things. And it gave you the plans, and he was just sitting there whittling away, enjoying himself. It didn't take up a lot of space, made a bit of mess, but it was just lovely to see. And there's a book online that actually I bought for my dad a few years ago that I could heartily recommend. If I find the name of it, I'll include it in next time's Shedcast. But it just struck me as a really lovely little activity that you can do. And then you can either paint them subsequently if you want to or not. They look great as little wooden figures. But with the liquor paint, they looked just fabulous, absolutely gorgeous. So a very satisfying thing. And then if I can close, I think, excuse me, there was a mention a few times this afternoon about, sorry, I've got that cough. I'm glad that we're not sat in the same room, eh?
Caught it from me.
Yeah, probably, thanks. So just my own personal testimony of creativity through coming out of isolation. When I was in secondary school, I went down with tonsillitis and had it pretty rough, and was off school for a couple of weeks. And of course I was sat there, bored out my brains, wondering what to do. But I was able, in those 2 weeks, to teach myself to play guitar. And I thought, what a great way. Got a little stool.
Pretty impressive.
Going to do it properly. And I thought we'd finish on a little musical number. I taught myself, this is when I was a teenager, I taught myself how to play guitar. And I've sort of been, it's just a wonderful skill that I learned. And it came out of being stuck, bored out my brains on my own. I wasn't bored out my brains for long because I could play guitar. So I thought I'd just finish and just give you a taste of what can come out of this sort of isolation. You can actually produce amazing things. There's a meme, just a picture going around on Facebook at the moment that came out of, he was born in Grantham, Sir Isaac Newton, during a bout of the bubonic plague, left Cambridge University and went back to his home in Grantham, I believe it was, and he was self-isolating there, and in that time he came up with theory of gravity and so many other, he invented calculus, so massively creative by being forced into a little backwater of focus. So I'll say thank you to everybody. Obviously Patrick's not with us, but thank you to everybody. JP backstage, thank you very much. Alan, this is a trip into the wonderful technology world for you, so thank you very much.
Massive leap forward.
Absolutely.
Or a massive leap anyway. I'm not quite sure whether it's forward or not.
Spoken like a true Luddite. Well done. And thank you, Mark, for joining us, both from the car, but also from home. Dan, you're absolutely right. Big build-up. Thank you very much. This is for you. Thank you.
Those 2 weeks weren't wasted, Marcel.
Everybody, thank you very much. It's been such good fun. I don't know when the next stream will be, but we'll see you next time. And if anybody wants to join us on these Shedcasts, we'd love to have your input. Adios.
Cheerio.